Hey there, my name is Megan and welcome to my channel, or welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing a book review for Pandemic by Robin Cook. Pandemic is a medical mystery novel, and it is the second book by Robin Cook that I have read. The first one I read was Nano. I do have a full review for that, so I will link it up in the cards as well as in the description box if you're interested in checking it out. And I had reservations about reading Pandemic because I personally did not like Nano. But Robin Cook is a very famous medical thriller author. Some of his books have been adapted into movies, and he's published a ton of books. So I wanted to give him another chance to see if he's an author that I personally connect with. But before we go ahead and get on into the review, if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button, as well as giving this video a like to throw my channel a little bit of support. The way that I structure my reviews is I discuss the plot, the things that I liked, the things that I didn't like, and then I give the book an overall rating. I will be discussing some spoilers for this book as well, so please check the timestamps down below if you would like to skip to any one of those particular sections. Pandemic was published in 2018, so it's a bit fortuitous. And in this book, we are following a medical examiner named Jack. He lives in New York City. And one day he comes across a rare case of a woman who passed away on the subway. And when he's doing her autopsy, he thinks that a new virus is to blame because there's a lot of inflammation, etc., in her lung tissue. But then he realizes that she has been the recipient of a recent heart transplant. And as he starts to uncover the mystery of this woman's death and what might have caused it, and if there is a new contagious virus out there, he realizes that the DNA of her heart, the transplanted heart, matches her DNA, which is virtually impossible unless it came from an identical twin. And as he is delving into this woman's mystery, more people turn up dead, and another one being a woman who also had a heart transplant. We also learned that there has been a new hospital set up in New Jersey that is run by this billionaire businessman named Wei Zhao, and he might have something to do with these mysterious deaths of these women. Jack has to use all of his networking, all of his intelligence being a medical examiner in order to uncover the truth of what happened to these women and to see if all of these clues are indicative of a global pandemic. The author does employ in this book some new medical technology that was discovered in around 2012 called CRISPR-Cas9, and it is a gene editing technology. So that does play a role in the plot of this book if you are familiar with that. Starting off with the things that I liked about this book, I really enjoy reading books where I can learn something new, and I have no experience in the medical industry at all. So reading about how Jack did his autopsies, what he looked for, what he analyzed, the conclusions he drew with what might have actually killed these women was just really interesting. And, you know, Robin Cook is a doctor, so it makes sense that he would be able to write about what he knows, and I'm glad because I learned a lot, and I really enjoyed the CRISPR-Cas9 aspect because I'd never heard of it before, and I did some additional reading. It has a lot of futuristic implications that could revolutionize healing genetic disorders, cancer, all sorts of things. So I'm really glad that the author pulled something from our real world and was able to wrap it into a fictional story. And he also brought in the ethical dilemma of using CRISPR-Cas9. As we all know, anytime we get new technology, there's always going to be people out there that exploit this technology. But in this case, I feel like the person that was exploiting it was doing so from an altruistic perspective. He wasn't trying to harm anyone inherently. He really was trying to do the right thing and kind of bypass the bureaucracy of the medical industry, at least as we have it here in the United States. And he saw a way to cure people, to give people life, and he thought that it was okay to not abide by the rules in order to provide people an opportunity to live. So there is that ethical dilemma that goes into, was our antagonist doing the right thing, or should he have abided by the rules? Although the rules that he's abiding by or has to abide by is part of a corrupt or ineffective framework. So there's really no right answer. And it is definitely relatable to our world because we see this happen all the time in the US with the medical industry and big pharma and medicine that is for profit rather than for the people. So I'm really glad that Robin Cook was able to shed a little bit of light on this issue. Unfortunately, that was the only thing that I liked about Pandemic. I'm going to go into my dislikes now because a lot of the dislikes I had for this book mirror exactly what I said in my dislike of Nano. So the first thing is, if you are looking at this book, and I hate to say objectively because literature is subjective, but he does not write good prose. He is not a good writer. He does not know how to evoke emotion. He does not know how to use figurative language, imagery. Everything is so plain and simple and cookie cutter. The dialogue is stiff between all of his characters. The characters are stiff and wooden and stereotypical, and you could take any character from any book, place any race, any gender, any name, and these characters would act exactly the same. There is no character development, there is nothing, everything is wooden. So when I mean that Robert Cook is not a good writer, when it comes to writing characters, when it comes to writing dialogue, when it comes to writing descriptions, he is not good. And then he makes his characters kind of ridiculous sometimes. So we have Jack, who's this medical examiner, and then he always, portrays Jack as being really into fitness, and he plays basketball and he cycles and does all these things. And at the end of the book, he literally has a physical altercation with the antagonist. And he was describing the antagonist as having this like superhero type physique, and like they get into a fight. Jack's like, I cycle, I play basketball, I can beat this guy who is jacked and taller than me and extremely muscular. It was so ridiculous. I don't know if he was trying to insert action into a story that does not have any action, but he really did not need to do that because it was horribly written. So that was just one example of how, unfortunately, Robin Cook just does not know how to write. I also had a lot of trouble with the pacing of this book. This is a medical mystery, not so much a medical thriller, because when I think of a thriller, I think of suspense, and there's absolutely zero suspense in this book whatsoever. But he does give small clues throughout the book that do build up to the ending, and it's interesting enough. But the problem is like I said, it's repetitive. So he will be talking to one person and explaining what he learned about this case, and then he'll go to another person and repeat the same exact thing about the same case. And me as the reader, I'm like, I already know this. He already told me. I don't need to read this over and over again. So a lot of the beginning of the book, when he first was autopsying this woman, Carol, and learning about her heart transplant and all of this, it was so repetitive. And then the pacing just didn't match up because at the end, we had this abrupt ending with zero closure. And I'm going to be talking about spoilers for this. So if you are interested in skipping, now's the time to skip. Okay, so my problem with the ending of this book is Jack literally learns the truth that Wei Zhao has been using CRISPR-Cas9 technology, and he's been growing human organs inside of pigs, and then using those grown organs and transplanting them into humans who need an organ transplant. The problem that he didn't foresee was the porcine viruses that pigs carry that could infect humans, and that's exactly what happened. So we learn all of this, and then the ending of the book was that Jack goes home. Actually, Jack was being held prisoner at Wei Zhao's estate, and his son rescues him. Not Jack's son, Wei Zhao's son rescues Jack, takes Jack home, drops him off, and the ending is that Jack is telling his wife what happened. I was like, that's the ending? That was so anticlimactic. What happened to reporting it to the FDA? What happened with the law enforcement, rushing this billionaire's house and seizing all his assets and, putting him in jail, or at least having a trial for him? It was so anticlimactic. I couldn't believe that was the ending. I was like, there's got to be more. There's got to be more. And that was my problem with Nano, is that the ending was so abrupt, and I just felt like there was no closure. I feel like Robin Cook has a lot of really intelligent, really interesting ideas, but personally, for me, and this is just my opinion, when he comes to translating those ideas into a fictional story, they fall short because, in my personal opinion, he is not a good fiction writer. I just find myself wanting more and feeling unsatisfied when I read one of his books. Like I said, I do appreciate the things that I learned by reading his books. I just don't think he's an author for me. So I can say that if he is writing about a subject, a medical subject or a science subject that I'm interested in and I want a fictionalized story about that, I would pick up his book. But if I am looking for a story where I want to feel emotion, I want to feel connected to the characters, then he is absolutely not the writer for me. This is a really hard book to rate. I'm going to go ahead and give it 2 out of 5 stars. Okay, you guys, that is it for my review of Pandemic by Robin Cook. Let me know in the comments if you have read this book and what you thought of it, or if you have read any of Robin Cook's other books and you found them really interesting and good and would recommend them. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in another video soon. Goodbye!